in going through this, we've identified what we think are 4 distinct phases if the city decides to pursue their own course of action. We are very involved in number 1. We did a staffing study for the city in 2024, and I think that staffing study, the point of that staffing study was for the city to understand that based on your demographics, based on your crime trends, based on your population, based on a whole series of factors, what should the staffing level be for BSO? So the city had an understanding whether BSO was appropriately staffing the services or not. I don't think anything stood out as an anomaly for me in that study, so it was pretty good. So we've been brought back to take another look that if the city were potentially, allegedly, purportedly, supposedly to do their own thing, what would it take in terms of personnel? Okay, so they would be appropriately staffed from day 1. The second thing is, my brother is an architect, my dad is an architect. They, in that 2024 study, did a look at all of the public safety facilities in Deerfield, and they were able to document some of the deficiencies of the buildings. Y'all own all those buildings. You own the fire stations. And I'm going to tell you right now that there are some things that will have to be addressed in that building, okay? A lot of technology has changed over the last few years. A lot of the way policing is done has changed over the last few years. And a lot of things like facility survivability have become important. For example, if you had a station that was built in 1970, clearly it was built before the Americans with Disabilities Act became law. Clearly it was not built with a Cat 3 hurricane in mind. So we were going to look at those facilities. And so we're going to be looking at numbers. We're going to be revising the staffing element. We're going to look at the facilities. And we're going to do what we think are some cost estimates to fix those facilities. So that's what the city's going to get from us. Our part then stops. And if the city decides, based on this information, that they want to move forward, well, that they're going to have to end up creating their own HR policies. I'll get to you, sir. They're going to end up having to create their own HR policies, their own training, their own retention. What are they going to do about healthcare? What are they going to do about pensions for whoever they choose, law enforcement, fire, or both? Then they're going to have to deal with the issues of training and deployment and readiness, because again, you don't want any gaps in coverage, right? If BSO stops at 12 minutes and at 12 o'clock and 1 second, you want to make sure there are people out there doing their jobs. And then phase 4 is BSO support. I think they said they're in the transition stage right now. There's up to 2 years left in that transition stage if the city chooses to do their own thing. So you're going to continue to have it. It's just going to be under a different contract. So the key assurances that we want that BSO continues at the current level. Again, if the city, you're going to hear the words "if" a lot. If the city decides to do their own thing, that they are fully ready to go on day 1. And the city, almost every city in the state of Florida and throughout the country have what's known as mutual aid agreements or MOIs, where if something happens, I'll give you an example. Winter Park, where I live, has 30,000 residents. I got 3 fire stations in Winter Park. How many ambulances do we have in Winter Park? Take a guess. 30,000 people. We got a college. People come there for tourism. How many? 2. So if I have a bad wreck at Aloma and Lakemont, both ambulances deployed, what happens then is somebody else has a heart attack or a stroke or a kid is drowning in a pool. Those mutual aid agreements would go in, and once somebody needs to be dispatched from 911, it would be from the city of Maitland or the town of Eatonville or the city of Orlando or Orange County. So there's no gap in coverage. Okay? That's the important thing. And then we heard a lot about financial transparency, and what we're trying to do is figure out, again, I go back to that car scenario, that house scenario. What are the costs going to be? What are the direct costs? What are the indirect costs? So for example, if tomorrow Deerfield Beach decided to build a brand new police station, or a brand new building for the sheriff's office, you've paid for it. You don't have to rebuild it in year 2 and year 3. But what we're going to do is tell them that, look, for every dollar that you spend on a building, this is going to sound a little backwards, but please understand, 10 cents on that dollar is spent on the construction of that building. The other 90 cents of that dollar is going to be in the maintenance and operation of that building over its lifespan. Sir, if you give me your contact information, I'll email you the whole thing.
That's just for questions later. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to do that for anybody too, by the way.
Thank you.
So the other thing to take into consideration is why our public safety facility is fairly expensive is because unlike a city hall or a library or a community center, those lights get shut off at the end of the day. At a police station, a fire station, they're in operation 24/7, right? So at the end of year one in a new building, that building's not a year old. It's 3 years old because they're using the power and the water and the sanitary. All those systems are literally 3 years old. So if you end up with a station that's 10 years old, it's really 30 years old. And that's why these things get expensive. So we're going to be very transparent. I will tell you right now, I had a question earlier today. Nobody in the city has told me what the numbers should be. The data will drive what the numbers are. Okay? Nobody said, make it this, make it that. And I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody ever did that to me, I would cancel that contract and walk away. Okay? Because our firm's reputation is built on our reputation. And it's built on the ability to have good relationships with our clients and to do the right thing by them. So some of the things that if you want to ask me questions about, I'll run through a few slides that may prompt you to think about a few things. One is the overall safety and current services. How safe do you feel today? How does that influence your feelings? Do you have any issues with response times? Are the response times been good? Have you felt like the response times could be better? This is up to you to tell me what you believe. Accountability and control. How important is local accountability? One of the young ladies that asked a question, she said, look, every 4 years we get to vote for the sheriff. Yes, you do. In Deerfield, you get to vote for a mayor, and you get to vote for your district commissioner. And the accountability issue came up earlier, and I would tell you that if you went, and there's that word again, if you went to a municipal police department and a municipal fire department, the accountability would be a police chief, a fire chief, assistant chiefs, captains, battalion managers, all the way down to the patrol officers and firefighters. There will be accountability, and those chiefs would respond to the city manager and the city council. So that's how that accountability would be done. Priorities. Is it crime prevention? If you are having a problem in your neighborhood, do you want more marked units in your neighborhood? Do you want more deputies? Do you want to see them do more community engagements? How are the response times? Culture, values, leadership. Accountability, diversity, transparency. You know, one of the things that we're going to do is we're just going to put the numbers together and let it stand for itself. The numbers will be what the numbers are. And then other concerns. Do you have any other questions? Is there anything else? And understand too, I really cannot do a deep dive on the process of how you got here today or the politics of it, because that's not in my contract. I'm not versed in it. I don't live here, so I don't know what's transpired among some of the personalities, but I can talk to you about the work that we're doing and going to do. And then our next steps are to analyze this. We are in the process of reaching out to those cities to get all that data-driven information that we need to do the benchmark for you all. And that's our commitment. We're gonna do the right thing. We're gonna do the right. We'll give the data, and the data will be made by your decision makers. Now, how do you get those decision makers to hear you? Everybody can go to city council meeting. I think there's a city council meeting tomorrow night. Every city council meeting I've ever been to across this country gives people an opportunity to stand up and say their piece for 5 minutes. I would also encourage you to email, write, or call your elected officials so that they know what your concerns are. If you can't get it in 3 minutes, it takes a little longer, write it out and send it to them as an email. You can invite them, if anybody here has a homeowners association or a building or any kind of association, invite them to come and address your organization or group and have them hear your concerns. I have seen over the course of 36 years, a lot of times when you have a big decision like that it sometimes goes to a voter referendum or a bond referendum. If that's something that you feel that you would like to participate in, I would encourage you to make that known to your elected officials. That if there came a point where you knew the costs to do a contract were here, and the cost to do something on your own were either here or here, and you would like to participate in that, I would go for a bond referendum or a voter referendum. So,
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, say again?
Can you repeat that?
If you feel like you as a voter want to have a say in this, then I would encourage you to make that known to the elected officials and encourage them to hold a voter referendum where you could participate, yes, no, or pick a course of action. So, with that, I'm going to open up. Yes, ma'am, I'm going to give you a second because that gentleman had his hand up like 20 minutes ago.
Okay. Based on the facility deficiency, whether we go with BSO or the city of Deerfield
You're still paying for it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So really, it shouldn't be part of your calculation, your calculus, because either way, you're gonna pay for it.
Don't you want to know what it is?
Sure. But it doesn't matter, what I.
It doesn't matter. You're going to have to pay for it.
You gotta
eventually.
pay for it either way.
Yes, you
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question is on the capital equipment.
Right.
Whether or not there was a CRC fund, the capital recovery cost fund, funded by the city over the life of a vehicle, for instance, like a $500,000 ladder truck. I know when we used to do it, we would depreciate that vehicle and fund the depreciation. Thereby, if we do that, I've never seen a contract, if we do that, there might be a pot of money that the sheriff has that actually comes back to the city as part of that capital recovery.
I don't think there would be because they don't own the vehicles.
Right, the city does, but the city, when they get purchased, we don't purchase them, BSO purchases them and they send us a bill.
This is one of those times where I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer to it. You'd have to ask the finance department in your city if they do that. It does make common sense though.
Yeah, I mean, we did all the time, I was just curious.
Okay? Yes, ma'am.
And he kind of answered part of my question, because my question was about the buildings themselves, because most of the BSO and the fire buildings are very, very old.
Correct.
And when I say old, I mean, I'm talking like 30,
Not as old as
40,
me,
50.
but they're getting close.
They're getting close. So that's going to be something that you'll have figured into that
Yes.
replacement. Got
Right.
it. Okay.
Yes, sir. We're going to try and get the financial, your contract is up in the spring with BSO. We're going to try and finalize the financial stuff at the end of the year and then focus on the staffing element, the space needs study, and the cost estimate. I'm going to tell you right now, you want to get a cost estimate for a facility as late as you can in the process, because we work with a national construction firm that has different firms around the country. And as I told people earlier today, we're working with the town of Lady Lake, and they are surrounded on three sides by this thing called villages. They are experiencing tremendous growth. And their new police station, the cost estimate came in $53 million. Okay? And they have a fraction of the people that Deerfield Beach does in public safety. The problem is that years ago they needed to do a water treatment plant, and the cost would have been $18 million, but they waited 10 years. Now the cost is $42 million. So construction costs are going up about 6% a year across the board around the country. So in Lady Lake, for the chief and the city manager, town manager, I gave them basically an actuary table and said, look, if you wait 10 years, that $53 million is going to go up to this to be $103 million. So there's an opportunity cost that if you wait, that's what's going to end up being. Yes, sir.
Did you say that the city owns the fire trucks?
Yes.
That we run out of? Okay. How many firehouses do we have for the city of Deerfield?
I think four.
He knows the answer.
Previous cost analysis that we've done in the city, I've lived here for over 50 years. The number was 5. The city needed 5 firehouses, and that was back in the early 2000s and before. So we're already behind the 8 ball because they've annexed additional property. Do you look at things like previous studies that were done? And do you look at things like demographics with regards to ISO ratings and things like that?
That's a great question. I'm glad you answered. The answer is yes. We do look at previous stuff. When we try to
Go away, I got one question.
Okay. I'll be here all night, man. We also look at population changes. We look at the fact that you're a coastal community and what is your daytime population versus your nighttime population. We look at the demographics of the city and how that's changing. We look at the calls for service that come into the countywide 911 center and figure out what those calls have been over the years. Are they going up? Where are they going up? What categories are they going up in? Where are they spending all their time? So for example, if you're in the villages, there aren't a whole lot of calls for the sheriff. but there's a lot of calls for an ambulance to show up, okay? So you have to look at what the calls for service are. So we look at all of those factors when we're trying to figure these things out. And then there's very little that we don't look at, to be honest with you.
Okay, so when you were hired by the city, the scope that you were given, is there a particular scope, or did they say, go find all this information out and come back?
No, we're gonna come back with financial numbers on what it would cost if you did your own thing. We're gonna do a staffing analysis, that if you did your own thing, these are the numbers of people that you're gonna have to have. We're gonna have data on what they're gonna have to pay for them.
The number of people that you're supposed to have in the current stations, or?
The number of people we predict you would have if you did your own thing. Because the study we did in 2024 looked at BSO, and that's available at the city if you want to go look at it.
Where is your information for staffing coming from?
Well, first of all, we've done these all over the country, so we're looking at different things. And again, what we have come up with our own algorithms, like in patrol staffing for like a municipal police department. I have a 7-step process because not everybody's different. You have a lot of tourists that come to the beach. Charleston, South Carolina has major colleges. They're a tourist destination, major festivals. Charleston, West Virginia has had 5 declining censuses of population. So we have to take all of that into account to try to figure out what are we going to see. If we think you're going to have, let's just say for the sake of argument, you have 100 patrol officers in Deerfield Beach today. You don't, but what's it going to be based on numbers? 2, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And then what you're going to have to figure out is what is going to be the appropriate space to have those people, right? So all of those factors make every community different. There is no one formula that I can say, oh, well, your population is 30,000, you need to have X. It doesn't work like that because every community is different.
So I agree with you 100%, but there is some minutia in the detail, right? So a structure fire versus a car accident. Say it's a multiple car accident. Say it's a pin job. Say now you have specific tasks that are oriented typically for specific units. Then you have to have support units. There is a number, and it is nationally known what that number is, of minimum staffing that you would have to get that accomplished. Unfortunately, that minimum staffing isn't what it sounds like. It should be called maximum staffing because they seldom exceed it, okay? But that number is very particular for the fire service. Prior to going to BSO, these guys ran the wheels off their apparatus in this town. It was nonstop. People from Lighthouse Point, Pompano Beach, Broward County, Boca Raton would help run calls in here because they were so understaffed, they were overwhelmed. And that's the biggest fear I have with this city coming up with a bright idea to go back to having their own fire department again.
That's a real concern.
Repeated.
Right. And I will tell you that our staffing study element will come in and say, look, we believe you need these numbers of people. If you don't want to pay for that, that's on you. If you don't want to staff it that, that's on you. You have to go deal with your public to deal with that. But we're going to come back and say, based on all of these factors, these are the people you need, this is where you need them, this is what it's going to cost, and that's our best guess.
I'll get your email, I'll send you some information.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening. This is my third meeting here with you, Mr. Reeves, and after the first two, I finally figured it'd probably be a good idea to sit down and write something down for you. In the 25 years I've been a visitor and a resident since 2004 in Deerfield Beach, the following are my experiences with the Broward Sheriff's Office. While visiting in 2000, 3 p.m. on March 16th, my 9-month-old nephew, my brother and I are playing in his playroom. A bullet passes through the window, gets lodged in the wall. We phone the police department. 45 minutes later, one police officer shows up. We show him the broken window, we show him the bullet in the wall. The response to us was, well, what do you want me to do? We escorted the BSO officer out of our house and asked him please not to come back. Fast forward, June 7th, 8 a.m. in the morning, 2007, well, being a renter in Tivoli, luxury rental apartments, 8 a.m. in the morning, I'm sitting on the toilet completely naked. All of a sudden, a BSO officer arrives. Yeah, right? And I'm not the most handsome fella. Long story short, BSO officer arrives into my bathroom, sidearm pulled, pointed at me, and asks me what I'm doing in my own apartment. Only to find a female officer and 5 others in my living room that were there based on a break and enter call at a neighboring building in that community. To add insult to injury, I was told that I should always lock my door, no matter what time it was, as they left. I'm not the suing type, but I guarantee you there would have been a wonderful lawsuit there. Fast forward April 2018, my vehicle gets hit in the Cove Shopping Plaza while having dinner with friends and family in a restaurant. Well, fortunately for me, there was a gentleman who came through, said, hey, I'm looking for someone who drives this in this vehicle. I just saw an inebriated woman leave a bar next door. She smashed into your bumper's been pushed in 4 inches. Here's all my information, I think you should call the police. I called the BSO. BSO officer arrives 45 minutes later. I show him my vehicle, I introduce him to the witness. The BSO officer says to me, well, what do you want me to do about it? I get very easily aggravated. I would have liked to have told him one thing, but instead I said, please just do the right thing. He did the right thing, he filled out an accident report, and everything went smoothly after that. Fast forward to April 22nd, 2020, COVID dinner with neighbors in my neighborhood, which is very close to here. 6 families, all spatially separated via the federal and state guidelines. 11 BSO officers arrive and threaten to use tear gas if we do not disperse and go back in our homes. Last but not least, 3 months ago, a neighbor had a party for their child on a Sunday. Well, 11 o'clock, everybody knows is usually quiet time, you turn your music down. Well, at 12 o'clock, midnight exactly, I phoned the BSO. 5 minutes later, the most incredible response time I've ever seen in my entire life. Gentleman comes, goes to the house, speaks to the people, asks them to turn the music down, and leaves. Naturally, 15 minutes later, the music escalates even louder, thump, thump, thump. I wait a while, I figure the party's gonna end sooner or later. I call again at 1:30 a.m. 1 hour response time this time, and the time changed. So now it's 3:30 in the morning. Police officer comes to the door, knocks on the door. I said, well, you came a little late, the party's over now. I said, it took over an hour for you to get here. And I said, I'm very disappointed. And you know what, maybe I should bring it up with Chief Hofstein. He proceeded to sit right in front of my house for an hour with his lights flashing in front of my home till 4:30 in the morning. So needless to say, as a God-fearing person and someone who does abide by the law, I have no faith whatsoever in the BSO. I don't have a lot of faith in police officers in general, especially the way I've been treated over the course of time. I could sit here and share all kinds of other stories about what I've seen in the 21 years that I've been a resident of Deerfield Beach. But I prefer not to bore everybody here. But I did want the rest of the residents who live here with me to understand that if you do the right thing and keep your nose clean and play by the rules, not always in your best interest. And I thank you for listening.
Yes, sir.
You said that you've conducted this type of work throughout the entire country. Could you talk about whether what you see in southeastern Florida from a public safety cost perspective is in line with what you see in other parts of the country? Is it more expensive here, less expensive here?
More expensive here.
And what would you suggest is the reason for that?
Cost of living, property values. The beachfront property is valuable. There are, you have a lot of people down here. You are not Covington, Tennessee. You are not Nacogdoches, Texas, where the cost of living is a lot less. And the problem is when you live in an area where the prices are high, if you're particularly in public safety, what you don't want to do is be one of those public safety entities where you get somebody through the academy, you bring them on board, you get them trained and up to speed, and a year later they leave because they go to the next city over and get a $5,000 raise. So you're going to have to be competitive, and and it's not just in salaries; it's also in issues of like retention, healthcare, pensions. We had a situation in Winter Park years ago where a police lieutenant got a very aggressive form of cancer and passed away, and none of the life insurance kicked in for like 3 months, and his widow was sitting there about to lose the house. So a group of private citizens got together and we formed an organization called Friends of the Winter Park Police and Firefighters. And so when things come up that aren't under the purview of the city's insurance, we step in to help. For example, earlier this year, we had a young firefighter, and he'd only been on the job for like a year and a half. We don't care. If you work for the city of Winter Park, we're going to step up and help. He had an 18-month-old son. The son was having brain seizures. They ran $8,000 to put a couple of stents in the brain to alleviate those. The kid's got, he's a young firefighter. He's got $8,000 worth of bills on the kitchen table. And so what we didn't want was this young man worried about those bills sitting on the table when he's trying to do his job. So we stepped in and covered that. So those are little things that I've gone to other communities and said, hey, here's something that you might do that might be a retention tool to help you keep the people you want. Because the thing I would tell you is that everybody in the back room who's got a uniform on, or everybody in those yellow shirts, if you've worked at your place for 5 years, and you know the streets, and you know the community, and you know the people, that's institutional history. If they leave, you lose that. And then you gotta train somebody else who's gonna be brand new on it, whether they're in this community or not. So those are all the things we try to factor into stuff too. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One is back retention. I mean, are you factoring in, if it comes back to the city, that many of the employees for Broward County Sheriff may move over to the city of Deerfield because they may not have a position anywhere else with the sheriff. So is there a way you can factor that in?
No, there's not.
Okay.
The only thing I can do is say, based on our knowledge base, you need these types of people in these roles and this responsibility from the chief all the way down to the patrol officer.
Yeah, but I'm thinking I think Broward County's FRS, and the city of Deerfield goes FRS, all their time, if they move over, is included. So they can come to the city of Deerfield, FRS is still, continuing, the seniority would continue, like everything would continue. So you need to kind of factor that, number one. Number two, we were talking about the contract that's currently ending in April. Do you know if the city has looked at negotiating a new contract?
Let me go back to what I said earlier. I'm not dealing with that. It's my understanding that discussions are ongoing, correct?
They are? Okay, I heard they weren't. And the other thing too, with the fire.
Right.
I know the union is fighting to go 24/72 instead of 24/48 with the Kelly days.
Right.
How do you factor that in when you don't know if that's gonna happen or not? So that's the problem with going outside the city is we're subject to another organization that tells us, when we first went to fire, it was Sheriff Lamberti came in and told us how many millions of dollars he was gonna save the city. Then he lost the next election. Sheriff Israel came in and said, sorry, I can't do it for that. It cost the city another $3 or $4 million when Israel came in. So there's like no local control. And if we're not negotiating a contract right now, there's no way for you to determine, like if Broward County says, okay, we're gonna go with a 10% increase every year, you're not factoring that in. But if the city has local control, I did not have the same experience with BSO, they've been very good anytime I've ever called them. But, so I just wanna make sure all the factors are included in your analysis. And one of them is that union contract. Another one is staffing. I know you're gonna look at NFPA. NFPA is written by firefighters.
Correct.
For firefighters.
Correct.
I've had many arguments as an engineer with fire departments about building
What
heights
kind
and
of engineer do you
overhangs.
want me to ask?
Simple.
Okay.
Right, 32 feet, I got a sprinkler. If I go 31, okay. If I got an overhang, that counts as first floor area. Well, maybe it doesn't, because NFPA doesn't say it, but it's for firefighters, by firefighters. So, and I know, and I don't know if you know this, but City of Hollywood had the same argument years ago. And they did a study about mortality and morbidity, because most people say, okay, we need 4-minute response times, and we need to staff for 4-minute response times. And unfortunately, that study came out whether it's 4 minutes or 8 minutes. And again, this is from 10 years ago. Make no difference in morbidity or mortality. So I don't know what you use. If you use NFPA, that's really a conservative number for estimating the cost.
We take a lot of things into consideration. For example, when we're doing population projections, we use about 20 different sources. We don't rely on just one.
Well, again, city has a comp plan, right? And by our own comp plan, we're over 90% built out. But the city has provisions in their code to build whatever they want, wherever they want. It's called a, PUD. And they've approved 4 of them so far, densities that are nowhere near what the city zoning code is. So
Well,
I
the
don't know
other
how
the other thing
you.
I will tell you is, I think it was SB 10 that went through the legislature last year, takes away local control from the cities relative to certain developments. For example, we have a family in Winter Park that owns a significant piece of property. It was an old car dealership. And I think the way the law is written, if they come back to the city and want to build a 2-story tower, right, put some apartments in there, if they designate a portion of that as workforce housing, they're allowed to exceed the height restrictions in Winter Park, and there's nothing the city
But
can
not
do.
the density.
But then the worst part of it is, then they come back next year and they want to build a second tower next to it, and they can do 1.5 times taller than that. And the next year they come back and do tower number 3, it's 1.5
They
times
just
taller.
hopscotch
And
it.
then they go back and tear down tower number 1 and build,
Oh, I don't know how you factor that in, is my point. You have a difficult job, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, but you know what, I like my job.
Well, you get paid for it.
I'm not a not-for-profit, I'll tell you that. Yes, sir.
Governor DeSantis is seriously considering giving the property owners here in Florida some type of property relief. And if that passes, I don't know if it has to be put on the ballot or whatever, but if it passes, that's gonna be revenue that's gonna be lost. That revenue pays the teachers and the police, the firefighters and everything. Everything. So how would you factor in that possible loss of income into your numbers? Because that will affect us here.
That's a great question, and the question was that the governor is talking about trying to eliminate property tax in the state of Florida. And a little known thing about me that y'all don't know is that I'm a very sick individual. I love politics. The only cure for me is going to be embalming fluid. And I've done about 230 political bond voter referendums in 6 different states since the 1992 election cycle. So all of that means what a politician says, what a politician does, and what eventually happens can all mean 3 different things. So the governor can say he wants to do this and do that, but I remember Governor Martinez tried to put on a services tax, and that didn't work. I personally, from my heart, watching Florida politics since I was in college, I don't think it's gonna pass. I don't think it has a hope in hell of passing, because you would decimate every county and every city in the state of Florida, and I think the Florida League of Counties and the Florida League of Cities is gonna be all over the representatives and senators to avoid that scenario. Yes, sir.
I just want to say that the study you are providing for our city is independent from that because it's based on the current situation for our tax.
Yeah, it's only focused on Deerfield. Come on, Mr. Nolan, seriously? Are you gonna say something I haven't heard before?
I'm gonna say something you've never heard before.
You got my interest up.
You suggested 3 meetings ago that I go to the commission meetings and ask questions. I went to a city commission meeting about 2 months ago when this all was coming into existence, before you existed. And I asked a question about the 25 or 30 firefighters who are still in the Deerfield Beach firefighters pension who have not calculated their pensions yet. And I said, what's gonna happen to them? And I got from the podium, from Sean Gladio, our public safety director, it's going to affect them. And I got from the city manager sitting on the dais, it's not going to affect them. So I got firefighters and paramedics who have been employed with the city of Deerfield Beach. They got hired with the city of Deerfield Beach prior to the merger. They were Deerfield Beach employees. They went over to the Broward Sheriff's Office, and they're still in the Deerfield Beach firefighters pension. If we go, God help us if we go, but if we go to an independent, now we've already passed an ordinance that there is no more Deerfield Beach firefighters pension, they're gonna be in the state plan, FRS. We kind of put the cart before the horse. We haven't decided if we're going yet, but we already have a pension plan for our firefighters. new firefighters that are gonna be hired to take over after March of 2027. So we have 35 firefighters who haven't calculated their pensions yet that are up in the air. I got the city manager telling me it's not gonna affect them, and I got Sean Gladio, the public safety director, telling me it's going to affect them. Where are they at?
Well, Mr. Nolan, because you decided to interject into the conversation, I'm going to address the group.
Thank you.
That's not what you said, sir. And it's not 35, your number continues to go up. First you stated 25 to 30, now you've gone to 35. So let's get the actual number of firefighters that you say will be affected. Because what I said at that meeting is that the number is conclusive. I was at the firefighter pension meeting, and I talked to several firefighters, including those on the committee or the board. I told you and everybody in that meeting, we cannot equivocally decide whether or not anyone would be adversely affected. I said, however, there are things that the commissioners have under their power and authority to do to ensure that they're not. So if you're going to quote what I'm saying, or you're going to say what I said, please, sir, be accurate.
All right.
Mr. Nolan, I don't.
I still haven't heard whether they're gonna be affected or whether they're not.
Mr.
And
Nolan,
it's not going to be a moment for you.
inspection.
Mr. Nolan, you know that's not my decision. You know that's a commission decision, okay? So let's not. Wait.
How can somebody work for 15 to 20 years for the city of Deerfield Beach, go from the city of Deerfield Beach to the Broward Sheriff Office, continue in the Deerfield Beach pension, and now all of a sudden it's a commission decision whether they're going to be able to stay or go?
Gentlemen, this is not the forum, this is not the place. Mr. Nolan, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, obviously, before this goes any farther, telling this city and these residents whether this is going to be a city municipal plan, or whether BSO stays or goes, I think we should represent the people who were Deerfield employees and that are still in the Deerfield pension plan. That I'm telling you, they said at the goddamn city commission meeting, those guys are going to be shit out of luck.
Well, I was not at that meeting, I don't know anything
Well,
about
you
that.
told me I should go to meetings. I've been there. I've been listening.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Ask you one of these days.
Everybody take a deep breath and blow it out slowly.
His wife's birthday,
Sort of to dovetail off of a little bit of what you were
Much
saying.
calmer this
We have representatives from our fire department here and from our police department here.
From the sheriff's office.
Having said, I've very rarely seen them, which is good. But there may not be an answer to this unless there's an anonymous kind of a survey put out. But do we have any idea how many of our police department, our policemen, how many of policemen and women, how many of our firemen and women will choose to stay with Deerfield?
We have no idea. No idea.
That's a good question.
And that's an individual choice.
Yeah.
And I would look at,
And it goes to
the
pay.
folks in the yellow
They're
shirts
gonna
and
have to
say,
pay anyway.
as somebody that served on the City of Winter Park's Police Pension Board, everybody, if the city decides to do that, okay, everybody's gonna have to make their own decision based on the circumstances in their life, okay? The circumstances, for me being a 61-year-old dude with no kids left in the house and I'm an empty nester, it's just my wife and I versus somebody that may have 2 small children are gonna be completely different considerations.
But you also have to look at the training. But one of the things that you had mentioned earlier was you get them in, fresh out of the training program. They start, you train them, they're here for a year and a half, you don't want them to leave. We have people here who've been with us for what, 15, 20 years? We
Maybe
don't want to
longer.
lose them.
No, and I will tell you this though, everywhere I've been where they've done the creation of a new police department like up in Sandy Springs, Georgia, the emphasis was not let's take anybody that comes to the door. We want people with experience. We want people with background. We want people that have been doing this, preferably in our own community over time. And know you, and those people will obviously get preferential treatment if they go to hire to do that. Yes, sir.
Just to share my opinion based on that is that, at least in corporate environments, what we see when a transition happens from company A to company B or in-source, what happens is that, as you mentioned, everybody's going to make their own decisions in their life, but the company who is making the conversion is going to analyze all the facts and try to get the best that they can for that people for retention purpose, make sure they are happy, that they don't leave, etc. So whatever it's the decision, of course they're going to try to give the best that they
Do you
can.
work for the city of Denver?
Oh no, I'm just a resident.
I don't either. Yes, sir.
You sound very nice.
Just sharing my personal business experience.
And that's what the meeting's for.
That's what my cousins did. To BSO.
Continue some discussion about the
BSO is having a problem.
about the service, level of service he received for a big long period. Based on that, I'm asking you whether your study will cover level of service throughout the geography or in some district or zone-wise areas, and also the corresponding costs providing the service and compare them with the adjoining cities and nationwide how it compares to them.
That is exactly what we're doing. Exactly.
What are you doing with that?
Couldn't hear it.
We have reached out to about 12 other cities to get all of their HR policies, their fleet, their costs, their staffing, their pay, so we can create this is what these 10 cities do, and this is what the range they pay for, say, a starting patrol officer or it would be BSO, a starting deputy. And this is what you probably have to pay in order to be able to be competitive and have somebody here. And here's what you're going to have for pension, healthcare, and the things like that. Because all those things are factored into. If you want to have somebody come work for you and be happy doing their job, they're going to want to be taken care of, okay? And it may be, sometimes it's not just pay. Sometimes it's facilities, right? Sometimes it's pension, sometimes it's some of the other things, it's a good healthcare system. But there's a lot of things that go into making an employee satisfied. And we have, look, those folks in yellow are working in some facilities that really, really do need some change. And we've been very vocal about that, so.
Do you have any statistics on that?
Do I have any what?
Do you have any statistics which have it now?
I do not, because we have just now started in the last week to reach out to people to get that data. I will tell you what I reiterated earlier, is that if the city wants me to come back and do some additional stuff, when we have like data and things like that, I'm happy to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Any studies about how the cost shares might be for contiguous cities to share for the services?
They can, and that's not within what our scope of services is. We're not going to the nearest city over and asking, would you be interested in combining services, or if there's any kinds of economies of scale to be achieved by doing that. That's certainly an idea that's out there, but you would have to have another contiguous city ready, willing, and able to do that before you could actually study what those costs would be and what that would amount to. And at this point in time, we have not been directed to look at any other communities that would be possibly interested in joining with Deerfield Beach to provide any kind of public safety services. So we're solely focused on what are the service contracts and what would it cost if Deerfield Beach did its own thing. That's really the narrow scope of our
You also
contract.
mentioned something about sharing. One city.
Mutual aid agreements.
Right. That would we still be in a position to be able to?
Oh, hell yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, you would. Yes, you would. Every city, county, township I know have mutual aid agreements with their local cities. Pardon me, southern local people. Yes, ma'am.
Like, for example, the helicopters, I'm sure there's helicopters,
There would be.
And then to use those services with the city pay for our.
That would be a different contract that would have to be. Yep.
So that could be an extra expense.
Could be. Yeah.
We wouldn't miss the 911 because. it's
No, that's a
private.
county service. Yes, ma'am.
I think what's important to me is that, having sat through these last couple of months with what's going on between Deerfield and
the sheriff's office one way or the other. It's a whole thing not only about accountability, but about us being bullied into something that we don't necessarily, or should not have necessarily occurred. And it's a trust factor for me. In addition to that trust factor, or overlaying that trust factor, is the fact that, and I was at a couple of your other sessions, and people were glowing about, oh, I've been in Deerfield 25 years, and I feel safe, or whatever the case may be. I've been here 75 years, all my life. I've seen it coming and going. And I can tell you in District 2, which you're standing in now, our level of service is not the same as what they get out in District 3 or District 4. I can count on my hands the number of times that I see a patrol car in my area, with the exception of when the helicopter come overboard and I look out and there are 5, 6, or 7 cars trying to run down one individual or one rampant car, one way or the other. So if you ask me if I feel safe, yes, I feel safe, but I feel safe based on the fact that through the years, that safety has built up because this is home for me and I've lived other places. And in Deerfield Beach, yes, I do feel safe, but it's not because of my police services that I get from the Broward Sheriff's Office at this particular time. In addition to that, then, I have to say, we in Deerfield, we don't, it's one of those things wherein, you know, they always look at us, some people as stepchildren. We are not that, okay? We are a viable city here. We have needs, just like everybody else, okay? So when you say to me something like the sheriff is going to do this or the other, one way or the other, I have to come back and I have to tell you and I have to tell people here. We vote on the sheriff. That's not going to change. When we vote on that sheriff, he's a constitutional officer, and he and his people have to provide a certain level of service to every city in this county, just because he is that constitutional officer. That is not going to change if we go to our own separate department. So we need aviation services or cops in the air or whatever. We get that. We pay for that through our property taxes. And if you want to know how to get them reduced, basically, you need to take you need to see one of the tax, somebody from the tax office. I just got a lady to get her taxes down to $400. She didn't know that she was able to do that. So please go see your tax office, somebody from the tax office, and try to work on that. We're always going to be taxed. We're always going to be taxed. Yeah, we're always going to be taxed. Taxes are how the cities pay for services. So to tell us that we're not going to have an increase in taxes, that's not fair to people. We're always going to have those taxes. Now, in deference to what my colleague said behind me, you know, this is something we don't know what's going to happen if the governor wins in terms of taking property taxes away. Is the state going to come in and fund our cities? No. I don't think so. I don't think so. So that is an avenue that we need to keep looking at, basically, and contacting our representatives and trying to get them to understand that we need those property taxes to stay in place. And if you're like me, you pay too many of them, but they are a necessary.
I think everybody would agree with you.
Yes.
They pay too much.
So I understand that it's not what you were hired for about as far as cities sharing the police force, fire,
Right.
et cetera. But do you know if anybody's addressing that outside of the scope of what you're doing? Is anybody addressing that? Could be a
I don't know if anybody else in Broward County is talking about that, and if they are, I'm not aware of it at this point in time. If there are any communities out there talking about joining together to create,
Broward County has always talked about regionalization of services. This is nothing, that's nothing new. There's always been discussions about regionalization of services, and it will continue.
I'm talking about Deerfield Beach with other cities.
I guess the corollary was if Deerfield Beach is talking to any other
Sharing
communities.
it to communities, and
Sharing.
how would we get some communication?
I don't know that Deerfield Beach has reached out to anybody. It's not, it may have happened, I just don't know about it. And you had a question?
If a firefighter or a police officer is leaving BSO to join the independent, if that's what the city does,
The municipal.
Yes.
Yes.
would those people be losing their seniority or their status with BSO if they went to go back?
So the question is, if the city decided to do their own thing, and somebody left working for BSO fire or law enforcement, came to work for the city, and if they decided to go back to BSO, would they lose their seniority? I don't know, I would have to defer to HR and the BSO on, what the policies are for that, depending on if there's an opening or what have you. I don't know the answer to that.
Do you make recommendations if the city were going to do their own municipal services for those things? Or no?
I just give them the data, and they have to make the decisions. Yes, sir.
Last question, I'm sorry. But I think one of the reasons the city went to BSO was the cost of the pension. Right, the city was not FRS at the time. And I know the pension that we have now, I don't think those firefighters are affected. That pension was frozen, the money's still there, and when they retire, they're gonna get that. But again, if we go with FRS this time, it's more of a fixed cost than it was before. I know in the city of Boca, which is where I worked for 30 years, the pension and benefits is 80% of the firefighter's salary. And we have a police and fire pension, independent from FRS, which is so expensive, it's crazy. But FRS is, 3% from the employee, and I don't know how much it costs Broward County to contribute, but things are a lot cheaper than the pensions that we offer for a firefighter.
If the city does decide to go that course of action, they're going to have an answer for that. Yeah. Ma'am, did you have a question?
No, I'm just trying to see where you getting your data from. That's a back pocket or where?
I've gotten my backside chewed off in these meetings, so I don't have anything to put in my back pocket anymore. No, we're gonna work with the major and work with.
Major, so you ain't working with me.
Well, we're gonna get data from the call center. I'm gonna try and get data from BSO. I'm gonna get data from those other communities, and I'm gonna try to create a benchmark to say, all right, these other communities are gonna pay this for this. This is what it's going to cost for that. So we're going to get a lot of data sources. And exactly what, like the population changes that we're going to look at over 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to have over 20 different sources from the...
See, Tony should have thought about that before we built that $75 million facility.
Ma'am, I can't talk about politics.
And that $100,000 mural of himself in the wall.
I don't know.
That's $75,100.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, I'm telling you.
I do know this.
You know now.
My family's architectural firm did not do that building. Yes, sir.
$75 million right there, you could say. That's next year's budget.
Did your company do the study for Pompano Beach? And if so, is that study available to the public?
The city of Pompano Beach did something I haven't seen in 35 years. First of all, I don't understand why on their dais they have an even number of people, because you get up with 2-2 or 3-3 or whatever it is, and it dies.
They're working on that.
They're working on it. Are they? I've never seen that before. It didn't seem to be. They also did the same thing when they did the selection committee to pick the consultant to help them. They had 2 assistant city managers and they had 2 people from law enforcement. The 2 people from law enforcement picked us. The 2 people from city managers picked another firm. Then the city made that firm and us work together. I am a sub-consultant to that firm, Raftellus, that's working with the city. So we're trying to assist Raftellus in their efforts to do what they're contracted with for Pompano Beach. Specifically, they're giving me the staffing elements that they have done, and I'm gonna be going to the office tomorrow and working on the space needs elements. You know, you all may not wanna hear this, but I've always said for 30 years, people determine square footage. Square footage drives dollars. Dollars drives decisions. And so my job with Raftellus is to try to help them understand what is the spatial needs that they're gonna need and what are those spaces gonna cost.
So that study isn't ready.
Their study probably won't be ready until March or April.
And that cost is gonna change.
Yes, sir, after Deerfield.
So everybody's been waiting on the study from Pompano to see what Deerfield will do.
Deerfield will be done first.
It's gonna be done after our.
Yes, sir.
When will ours be done?
I'm hoping to get the financial numbers done in December, and then by February, have the staffing element done, the space needs study done, and the cost estimate done. The thing that's gonna take a little bit longer on the cost estimate is that when I work with this national firm, I give them, you know, these are my 6 pages of line item costs. If they take 2 days to come back with big revisions or a week, that's up to them. I just try to get it into them as early as I can because they're really providing that service to me. They're not charging me for that service because my family has worked with that family for 30 years. But I don't want to, I've always felt it's better to have another set of eyes on things. And if I've got people that this is what they do for a living, they do cost estimating, and if I could get them to tell me this is a little under, this needs to be this needs to be this, I have greater confidence in the numbers that we're doing. And I'm going to tell you right now, whatever the numbers are on a new building, it isn't worth a dime 6 months from now because costs are going up exponentially. So the other thing too is when we look at doing new buildings, we tell everybody don't buy any of the technology until 30 days before you move in. Because if everybody thinks about flat screen TVs when they first came out, you know, you could go to Walmart and get a flat screen TV like this for 10 grand. Now you can get that thing for like 30 bucks, right? So technology costs go down. So, you know, we're looking at that too. It's, you know, all the costs that go. When we do cost estimates on buildings, it's not just the bricks and mortar. There's the indirect costs. Where's my civil engineer? Did you have to leave already? It's, you know, all the engineers, the architects, the contingencies. You've got to go looking at the technology, the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, equipment. There's a lot that goes into it, and that's why our cost estimates are like 6 pages long, line item, line item. I mean, I'm going to tell them what the sod's going to cost, what the irrigation going to cost, what the lighting going to cost.
Just to follow up, speaking of
Absolutely.
costs, the city spends by and large more on public safety than anything else, right?
Every city does that.
So in the most recent proposals and even in the current contract that we had, there were uncapped numbers for benefits. So my question to you is, how are you factoring in the growth of the cost of benefits so that there can be an accurate forecast of how much that's going to cost 3, 5, 10 years from now?
We could make predictions, but I can't guarantee whether they'll come out that way or not. We look at what other cities are doing, what other counties are doing, what are their costs, what are their cost escalations, and we try to build in like a range. So your decision makers will have a range to pick from. It could be here, it could be there. And we try to do that as accurately as possible. Yes, sir.
Just one more question. Will your recommendations be for the entire city as cost numbers, or will you also want to extend
Could you speak into the microphone?
I'll reiterate it.
how to distribute the facilities within the different zones or different districts in the city?
So the question is, does our estimates focus on zones or are they citywide? And the answer is it's going to be citywide. It'll be for a police department that's citywide. It'll be for a fire department, an EMS department, fire rescue, citywide. Correct. Yes, sir. And I like it. He's up front. I can get a drink of water while he's talking.
You know, we tend to throw money figures around without really thinking about how much of the amount we're actually talking about. And 1 million seconds is 11.5 days. 1 billion seconds is 31 years. And we do need to upgrade the firehouses, of course. I guess one of the most famous firehouses that I can think of is Hook and Ladder 8 out of New York City, and that's the Ghostbusters Firehouse. It was built in 1903. It is still operational, and all the apparatus and all the equipment inside is compliant with NFPA 1550. So that's, you know, we have the firehouses, and all we have to do is retrofit them so that there's, you know, male and female bunk rooms, for example, and shower facilities and things of that nature. So I was looking at some of the proposals that the sheriff had, and you know, most people in here know that Broward County turned down a certain aspect of his budget, and it's now being discussed in Tallahassee, and it's, you know, we'll find out the results of that. But the budget is about, from what I read, is about $1 billion. And when you take a look at some of those salaries, and this is why I'm a proponent of local control. A colonel in BSO, I think he currently makes $248,000. Under this new proposal, he would be making just under $300,000. That's pretty good. You know what? I want to see the guys that are on the fire apparatus. I don't care whether they've been here for you know, a few years or a few months, but I think those guys deserve more money than the command staff. I don't think we benefit much from the command staff, and I think if things were local, we would have more control over those monies. So.
So he said pay the lower guys more?
I went to farming.
Yeah.
We guys agree with that?
In your presentation, you show one slide that mentioned that next year we don't have a cap because the contract expiring, we have the 2 years. So how exactly you are going to work on these statistics in terms of how much we are going to end up paying for those last 2 years of?
That's going to have to be negotiated. If the city decides to stick with BSO, they're going to have to come down and have a contract. They're going to have to. No, there'll have to be a cap probably, but that's. I'm not going to be part of those negotiations or that contract. So. I'm sorry?
When that's happening?
Yes, you're in the transition stage right now with BSO. It's down to like, I think, 22 months. Major, is that correct? Major, 22 months of the transition period left?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, is 22 months.
22 months. So they have 22 months to get something done.
I just want to bring something up, a point of information, please. That's very important. Gentleman said retrofit. We retrofit the fire stations. They're falling apart, literally. The one outside Century Village, which I represent, District 3, Century Village, was built in 1974. It's basically falling apart. They're saying there's 6 fire stations in the city of Deerfield Beach. 3 of them are obsolete. I mean, the fire station by the beach is obsolete. Talking about a police station, that police station, as my dear mom would say, is from the year Gimel. It's old, it's obsolete. So we need to do more than just retrofit. We need to replace. So that's, you know, these are the facilities that if you're a new firefighter or a new police officer, would you want to work for fire stations that are old and falling apart? Or would you want to work in a police station that's falling apart? This is something that's very important that we need to consider.
Where's the money going to come from?
Well, that's another decision. First thing first.
You're going to swipe the credit card. Well, not, I mean, you have to. It's going to be like $100 million.
Quick question, President. Those facilities that we have in the
Like city of Pompano, all the fire stations.
Right, you know the facilities.
matter if we are using BSO or our own department, we still have to take care of it.
It doesn't matter what the logo is, you gotta take care of it. Yes, sir.
We gotta get like the city of Pompano Beach, all new fire stations, brand new fire stations.
Look, you hired my brother's firm, I'd love that. I'm being honest. And if you are a firefighter and want to see a great fire station, go to the city of Orlando and go to station number 9. We just did that. That is like the state-of-the-art facility. And what's that?
What's so special about Station 52 popping up? Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's not just that everybody has their own bunk room, but we put new technology in so that if you're on a certain, if you're running a certain piece of apparatus and you're not needed, you're not going to get woken up. So we can differentiate between what squads and what piece of apparatus needs to go out on call. The exhaust control systems, the bunk rooms, the day rooms, the kitchen, it's beautiful.
Have you visited any other Pompano Beach facilities?
No, I have not.
You can come down there and visit some of our.
Do you have one in particular you want me to see?
I want to go see 10th Street and Federal Highway.
Road trip.
All of our cities.
Okay.
How much does
Fire service
cost?
What's that?
How much does one in Orlando cost at modern? And how big? How many trucks?
I don't know, but I tell you what, give me your email address, I'll ask my brother what the cost was and I'll get back to you. Yes, ma'am.
You're not doing endless maintenance on old buildings. Your electric is better, the lighting is better, more economical, all those types of things save when you put in a building value. So
Right.
sometimes that counteracts that extra.
If the wiring was not put in by Thomas Edison, it probably will last longer.
Right, it doesn't matter which way we go, right.
Mold and asbestos and things like that, that
You're
they're
ready to
working
go.
on, while they live there to protect them.
Well, we were,
So, you know, all those things.
yeah, we were one of the first folks, just as a sidebar, to move firefighters from hot zones to cold zones. You know, and put in commercial extractors for all the turnout gear, the bucket gear, and building vestibules with negative air pressure so that things that came in off the trucks did not get in the day rooms and the bunk rooms and the like. Anybody else? He's going last. I most certainly did treat Bernie that way, and I did the same thing to Dan. Is anybody else who hasn't spoken yet? Yes, ma'am.
Ray and I live in a community where we've seen a lot of changes over the years, the many years that we've lived there, and we've noticed that there aren't very many services that help us. If we call for police assistance, we tend to be ignored. And we're concerned about, is this going to help the people in the community to feel safer by having more active,
Law enforcement presence.
yeah, more, yes, thank you, more active law enforcement presence. Because we don't want to bother you to call, but we feel like they're not really taking it seriously. We'll call you and say something. Is this the forum for that, or?
Sure. But I'm going to tell you what every law enforcement entity has always told me. If you see something, say something. And I will tell you that the major, raise your hand, Chris, he's standing right there. Feel free to go up and ask him about that. I'm sure he can share some information with you. He's a nice guy. He'll listen to you, right? Anybody else?
Howard. Bill on road.
All right, I'm going to time you, man.
2 minutes. Oh, come on, I'm not in a commission meeting.
Let me switch to video.
2 minutes or less.
You get 3 if you wish.
Yes, but I'm giving you 2.
The city of Deerfield Beach, when the BSO came into existence in 1990 in the city of Deerfield Beach, they had a level of staffing. That level of staffing has never gone below that. The city of Deerfield Beach, prior to 1990, if somebody called in sick, or if there was a problem with one of the vehicles, they shut the vehicle down. In 2011, when the fire department went to BSO, they said we're going to have a level of staffing in the city of Deerfield Beach of 3 men on every truck.
Or women.
Or women. Firefighters, paramedics. The city of Deerfield Beach at that time, for almost 2 years, had been shutting down trucks when people called in sick. Once the overtime budget had been exhausted, there was no more replenishment to the overtime budget, and we were shutting down trucks. The service to the citizens of Deerfield Beach could not get any better if you hired anybody in the country. The Broward Sheriff's Office is in the top 5 sheriff's office in the country as far as service level. The city of Deerfield Beach Police was like the Keystone Cops. They didn't go to certain parts of the city when there was problems there. And the other question about the fire stations, in the past 15 years, since the city of Deerfield Beach has gone to the fire service, BSO providing the service, you're absolutely right. The city owns the station, but do you know how much maintenance has been done in those stations? 0. There was mold in Station 75 on the beach. They took completely the drywall out from the ground floor. I was stationed there when this happened. I'm lucky I'm not dead yet. They didn't even go to the second floor and check there. They just replaced the drywall on the first floor. This is what the city of Deerfield is. We're a secondary entity as far as the city of Deerfield Beach is concerned right now, and that's not right. Because they own the stations, they own the trucks, and they own nothing that's on the truck. So if we go to our own fire department, we're probably going to need 3 or 4 more fire trucks. We're going to need all the equipment that goes on our fire trucks. And we're going to need 142 firefighters because there's nobody from the Broward Sheriff's Office that's going to go to the city of Deerfield Beach. Because I guarantee you, this guy's pay plan and benefit package is not going to be as good as what the city of Deerfield Beach is going to offer.
I haven't even done it yet.
And I'm a 34-year veteran of the city of Deerfield. I started when Deerfield Beach didn't know what they were doing in 1985. And when you have somebody that has a heart attack or somebody that has a stroke in your living room and you need help, you want somebody coming that knows what's going on. The city of Deerfield Beach is going to have to hire 142 firefighters that have no idea where they've been or what they're doing. They're brand new. And those are the people that are going to be coming to your front door.
Well, yes and no.
I hear everybody touting, how good this service is one way or the other. I want you all to know that in District 2, we make a call to fire or whatever. We still have a hard time with them just finding our addresses.
Thank you.
It's awful. You give certain services, you give certain places, or BSO does good in certain areas, but in other areas, unless there's a fight or something over in District 2, we don't get that same level of service, and I'm tired of it.
The other thing I would say, if I may please, what somebody did or didn't do 35 years ago is not how it's going to be done today. It's training has changed, policing has changed, fire service has changed, facilities have changed, technology has changed. So what happened 35 years ago is not going to happen today. I don't know what they would do, but I'm going to tell you right now, it wouldn't be like it was 40 years ago. A lot of things have changed in public safety over the time. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
The gentleman who was speaking let everybody know what his thoughts were quite well. But I also look at the leadership of what has happened with the Broward Sheriff's Office. The person who leads that office has done things that have been illegal, have been at least unethical and immoral. And it's not just on our level, but I think I see that on a state level as well. So I don't have enough trust in Tony to want to keep him to take care of us, to take care of me.
That's what the building was for. And I don't know. I've never met the sheriff. I've never been in the same room with the sheriff. I don't know anything about that. So,
just one final opinion from my perspective. Costs are increasing for everybody. So, as everybody saw, we don't have a contract. So we have like 2 years left on existing contract with no caps. So we don't know how much it's going to cost. But I say, on the end of the day, he's going to do a service for the city that will provide to us some numbers statistics. And of course, we as residents will have to be present in the city hall's meetings and make sure we make our opinion valid there and influence their decisions in what we think is better for us with whatever is the decision, right? Keeping BSO, how much is going to cost that in the future, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and how much we're going to have to invest one way or the other, because as everybody said here, the buildings are falling apart or need renovations, whatever is the case. We own that, so it doesn't matter if it's BSO or us, we still have to pay for that.
As long as you're still paying taxes.
And the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to conclude the evening, and I'm going to stay if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, but again, I just want to thank you all for showing up and speaking with me and sharing these things with me, because it means a lot to me that you were able to take time out of your schedule to do that. I'm sorry I don't have all the answers for you, but we're going to do our very best to try to get that data. Yes. And the other thing I will tell you is it means a lot to me that you're here, and that's all I will say. But my email address, if anybody would like to reach out to me, I can give you my email address, or I can give you one of the last few business cards I have. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you want. Thank you all very much for coming.